So let's talk about your flutes. How did it all start?
I had gone to the Honor the Spirit powwow over in Mason
Mm-hmm.
and at Parker's Maple Barn.
Yeah.
And I'd been going there for years and heard David Searching Owl playing the Native American flute. Absolutely fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a flute off of him. I bought my first flute. It was a high spirit flute, which David sold. At that time, David was selling. Now he's making his own. And he joked and said, maybe next year we'll have you up here playing.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, I was over here playing at one of the booths. Actually, I was in the woods playing. After I had listened to them play, Richard Surinau heard me play and invited me to an open mic
Mm-hmm.
that night. First time you get to play with electronic equipment, real professional equipment. Couldn't pass it up. Played for them. They loved what I did and invited me to come the next day to play at the powwow.
Yeah.
That, in turn, I bought another flute where my walk beside Jackie looked at me and went, you gotta learn how to make these, this is getting expensive. The first one was $90, the second one was like $250.
Right.
Couldn't afford to buy them, you have to learn how to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to make it. I can show you some old ones that, to me, they're horrendous. At the time, they were the best I could make.
Right.
And it's been a learning process. But that's how it got started. I just basically, I fell in love and had to learn how to do it.
So did you self-teach yourself how to make them?
I started teaching myself. Larry Winsong Healer, he's one of my elders. He's a good teacher. Ron Perry also showed me. What happens with these things is a lot of these, this instrument almost died out
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s during the persecution times for the Native Americans. They weren't allowed to use the flutes. They weren't allowed to use a lot of the things on the reservations, and it almost died out. So to try to get this instrument back into the mainstream, a lot of these guys, what they do is they'll show people how to make them.
Mm-hmm.
Not step by step,
Right.
but once Larry found out that I was serious about this, he showed me little things,
Mm-hmm.
little. All right, this is what you need to concentrate on. You need to concentrate on getting that channel down. And, give me pointers on where I was going. But a lot of it is trial. Made my first flute in '06.
Yeah.
It's now '10. I got. This is what I call my Bible. This is 6 years of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting up pine and finding the different, where to start the holes.
Yeah.
I'm now to the point where I'm comfortable with what I'm producing.
Yeah.
I used to do what's called a grandfather tuning. You would cut the holes, listen to it. If it sounded good, you left it alone. Now I do an electronic tuning.
Mm-hmm.
All the holes are keyed to the pentatonic scale. They're all precise. I can actually do a double flute
Mm-hmm.
where they're keyed to each other, and they'll harmonize between the two of them. I mean, it's something that nobody else in this area right now is doing. I've got a lot of my teachers scratching their heads. They can't figure out what I'm doing, but it's just because it's working.
Right.
Not good upstairs anymore.
Like I said, it's been what? It's 11.
Yeah.
2011. It's been
Oh, you
5 years now of
Yeah.
trial and error.
Now, how exact? When you're working on those and you're starting to put the holes in, I mean, have you ever completed a flute and you're working on like the last hole and
It pops.
ruined the whole thing?
That's what that's for.
Oh.
Jackie will hear me every once in a while. You can plug the hole. If you're tuning a flute and it goes too high, you either have to plug the hole
Mm-hmm.
and start over again. If you're too low, you can always make in order to raise the note, you make the hole bigger.
Yeah.
And if you're way off, I mean, that's why you start with pine. You start off with some of the cheaper woods. And then you do the trial and error with those. You don't do it with the maples. You don't do it with the black walnuts, the purple hearts. I mean, the woods that you spend a lot of money on.
Yeah.
You want to make a mistake. You want to make a mistake with $1.95 a square linear foot
Right.
wood, and nothing that those woods are make any worse of a flute. They're just cheaper woods. Your investment is not to the point where you're losing $15, $20, $30 on a piece of wood.
Right.
Rather, you get an idea of where the wood's supposed to go.
So what's the average length of time it takes you from start to finish?
In actual time that I spend on the flute itself, I want to say like 3 or 4 hours of actual time. It can take an hour just to tune the flute.
Right.
You have to cut the wood, route the wood, glue it back together again. You have to wait the day for it to glue back. I make a 2-piece flute. Some people will make a 1-piece flute. My teachers taught me to make a 2-piece flute. You glue it back together again after you make the channel. This is actually a blank. You route out the chambers. And this you have your back chamber. And what you do is you would have 2 of these and you mounted one on top of the other. Then you have one with holes in it. Where you would make this is called the sounding edge. Now what this does is it put a hole in here. Obviously you blow into this sounding edge, into this hole. Now the air comes out of here, and what you do is you have your, this is the one I always use. This has a channel carved into it. And what that does is it brings the air at the correct angle once you put that on top of there.
So when you look on this one,
When you look
this
on that
stays
one,
here.
That
This-
stays there.
So you actually have 2 separate chambers
You have
complete.
2 separate
And then
chambers.
it's the hole on the top that the air flows through, goes around through that channel,
That channel goes from here through this channel,
and then
hits this at the correct angle. It's like what they call a purple flute. Like a fife.
Yeah.
Where you would have to hold it at the right angle.
okay.
This does it for you.
Oh.
These were chording instruments. What the gentleman would do is he'd go out and he'd make one of these. And he would play his heart out for the woman, leave the flute out there for the woman to find. In the morning he'd leave it out in front of the lodge or the teepee, depending on which tribe he belonged to. What he would do is he'd leave the flute out there after he played his heart out. If she liked what she heard and she liked him, she'd take the flute and bring it into the house, bring it into the lodge. And that would be the signal that, okay, the courting can begin. You need to talk to my old man. And if you left it out there, that means she rejected him. That was it. The idea on these is to make it as easy as possible. And that's the way it's set up. These are set up to play, their heart out, set up to a pentatonic scale, which if you follow within the pentatonic scale, which is the native scale, it's a world scale, it's a Celtic scale. Chinese used it, some cultures in the Chinese used it. It's a very easy scale to learn how to play. But they made it as easy as they possibly could, because we're all fumble-fingering idiots trying to attract a female. But that was the idea of it. That is basically how you make it. It's a whole.
It's amazing. Makes you wonder how they figured it out way back when.
What they saw was, you want the legend? I can give you the legend.
I want everything.
All right. The way the legend, as it was told to me, okay, you have to say this, as it was told to me, there was a gentleman, a young warrior, who was in love with the chief's daughter. It's always a chief's daughter. And Did everything he could to, did everything to get her, couldn't get her. He decided, this is it, I'm taking off, I'm leaving. He goes and he hears music in the background. He sees a woodpecker.
Mm-hmm.
And the woodpecker says to him, I'll get you the girl. It's going to be a favor. He said, all right. So go to that tree branch, he showed him. The woodpecker showed him the right tree, the cedar tree.
Mhm.
Cut the tree, showed him how to make the flute, where to cut the holes, everything. He said, now play your heart out. He played his heart out. And of course, he wins the girl.
Yeah.
He says to the woodpecker, he asked the woodpecker, I said, all right, what do I owe you? The woodpecker says, from now on, whenever you make a flute, put a woodpecker on the end of it. Like a lot of times when you see Lakota style, they'll put a bird on the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll put a woodpecker. And that's the legend. Now, what quite probably happened was somebody heard, the reeds blowing in the wind,
Mm-hmm.
and went from there, and then they learned how to tune it, and cut the holes, make it smaller. When you cut the holes, basically what you're doing is you're making the flute smaller, as far as the flute is concerned.
Now, that's a huge part of their life, because that's their whole.
The drum is the heartbeat of the powwow. The flute is the soul of the powwow.
So, what does the flute mean to you personally?
It's everything to me. These flutes have brought me into a whole new way of life. I every weekend I'm at powwows. Every weekend I'm with my spiritual leaders. I attend sweat lodges now. I mean, my whole outlook on everything is to drink heavily.
Mhm.
I used to smoke heavily. I mean, I don't do any of that anymore. I don't have time for it. I barely watch television anymore. This is it. This is my life. Eventually I'd like to quit my other job, do this full time, but not for now. This is my hobby. This is the way I like it. It just opened up the whole spirituality of the Native American church to me.
Mm-hmm.
Those people.
You don't have any Indian blood in you.
No.
But your last name is Longrider.
No, my
Oh,
European
okay.
is Ponsard.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
I was given the name Longrider. The literal, one of the names for people who are proficient in Native American flute playing, they're called wind riders.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody remarked one time about how long I can hold a note.
Oh, yeah.
So Longrider came out of that. And then, now I gotta, yeah, you cut it, depending on how wide you want the flute.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is a 1-inch channel. As this is
Now, is it always a
1-inch?
1-inch channel?
No. No. I mean, well, I got this. That's a 1/2 inch. That would be like a high F. Depending on how high you want to go, it kind of depends on the width and the length.
Mm-hmm.
This will actually, if I cut the end of it off, will actually deepen the note. But that's part of the tuning process. I can show you. Like I said, you would cut it a certain length,
Yep.
a certain width. Now this has a core box bed on it.
Mm-hmm.
What we would do is I would mark on here where the channels are, like this.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, this is where it's going to stop, this is where it's going to begin, and start back up again. I measure these out. It's
Mhm.
usually about 2.5 inches to here, and whatever, 6 and whatever.
Yeah.
But I got the measurements over there. And then on half of these, what you do is you drill a hole here and here, straight down. All right, and then using a Dremel,
Mm-hmm.
you put this at an angle so that the air sweeps up instead of hitting it and jostling it gives it a nice sweep up. You can see this is angled.
Yeah.
Now this side goes straight down. Back of the sounding edge, sounding hole, and then this one is at a 30-degree angle.
Okay. The top is a 30 degree. Now, is this a 30
This-
degree as well?
No,
or-
this is straight down.
Yeah.
This is at a 90. Easiest way to show you. Right, this one back hole is angled.
Yeah.
So that when the air comes in here, it gently goes up.
Okay.
Now, back of this sounding hole is like this, straight up and down.
Okay.
This one is at a 30-degree angle.
Okay.
Now, what that does is, when the air goes through it, it's going to hit this, create a disturbance, which is the vibration, which creates the sound. So that's all sound is anyways, it's all vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So you want
And then with the holes, that's just changing the frequency of the vibration.
Right.
Okay.
Then, once I glue those back together again, I'll just show you that. Now this, because I don't use a lathe, I use this only to make the channels.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times guys will round that off with the router. Because I'm into that whole soul transference thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long enough, and I don't have enough time to commune with the wood.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done with this jig, what I was missing. I'll take this. Round it up. Just round off the corners.
Yeah.
But that's what I do, I round it off with this. Continually turn them. And then, once I get it to a certain point, put it in this. Get the rasp.
Mm-hmm.
You round it off. Eventually, then sand it down and it looks like this. Sand it down, make it nice and smooth, make it beautiful. Use tongue oil on the inside, 3 coats of tongue oil, on the inside and the outside. Then, look like this. Now this is the same wood on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this one's been treated.
But it's pretty cool to see there's the 3 steps, if you will, from the square to the round to now with the finish on it.
Then what I do comes the tuning time. Now this is all over the course of days. It takes a day for this to dry, the glue to dry once you get them back together. 3 more days for this, then a day, then 3 days of this to get it to there. But you take this. After I build a bird for it, by the way, what goes on top of here is always called a bird. Whether it's a bear or whatever, this is the nest and this is the bird. That's the terminology.
Okay.
So I'll refer to it. Even if I grab a bear, it's still a bird. So this is my test. Now, to tune it. It's easier to do it with these. Electronic tuner. Which is a guitar tuner.
Yep.
Now, what what we're trying to do now is to find out what key it wants to be. F sharp. Now, normally, if that wasn't straight up like that, or I want it to be a G, I can change this to a G. What you do is you just cut off the end. Slowly cut off the end until you hit that whatever note it is you wanted to hit.
Yeah.
If this was off, that's what I would have to do. I would have to cut off the end slowly. But right now it's an F sharp. So obviously it wants to be an F sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice clear note. It's not breaking that much.
Mm-hmm.
If you blow too hard with these on the low note, it'll break it up to the next octave.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you might want to cut it down, or you might want to increase this hole, make the size of this hole this way. Sometimes that'll stabilize that whole effect. But this thing is really wants to be an F sharp.
Now, what about the position of the bird to the holes?
The edge of the bird should be at the back of the sounding edge,
Okay.
give or take. Sometimes they want to be.
But I mean, will that
difference.
will that change?
Oh
it?
yeah. See how breathy it is? This versus. I mean, I'm getting a little air from the back because this thing is long. But then you just where the holes are supposed to start. You just look it up in here. If you have one of these, I happen to have one. You go 4.5 inches on the first hole. And that should turn out to we usually have all this stuff around here. 4.5 inches from the end of the flute,
Mm-hmm.
which is where it's actually probably it would be easier for me to do it from here to there. This is the way I was taught. So measure 4.5. Make a mark. Now the idea when you're tuning is to go under the note that you're looking for. If you go over the note you're looking for, you have to plug the hole. So if you're under, you can bring the note up. It's easier to bring the note up than to bring the note down.
Right.
I mean, there are ways to do it, but that's the idea. So if you take the smallest drill you have,
Mm-hmm.
try to stay. This is a habit I've gotten into lately. Looks good. Knock the hole. Clean the hole out. Other jigs. If there's any shards or anything, it will change the note. Anything that's going on inside. See where the shard came out?
Something as small as that will change.
Will change the note.
Wow.
Yeah. Then you just blow it again. Hopefully it's in the right spot. You want a clear, steady breath.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to blow too hard. If you blow too hard, watch what happens. See how it went up?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. So it's under G sharp. Look on what you need, which is an A.
Mm-hmm.
Which means we have to make a bigger hole. Which is good.
Right.
Because you wanted a bigger hole. You don't want to make the hole too big, but a decent sized hole means you can bend the notes, play with loosey tunes. You know, if they're too small, you can't do. It's a little tougher to do that. Now make another hole.
So when you actually have a flute, the holes are never all the same. Even though you might look in But they're
No,
not the same.
They're not the same. Because what happens is you're dealing with wood,
Yeah.
which has a personality, which has grain.
Right.
You can have two pieces of cedar, cut them the same way, do them the same way, but because of the grain, it'll sound different. Just slightly different, but it'll be different in your ear and in your soul, and it'll speak to you where it won't speak to me. I can pick up a cedar flute and go, yeah, it's a nice flute,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. Or there could be another flute that'll torture me for an entire powwow season that I had to have by the end of that powwow season.
Yeah.
And I'll show you that one later.
Okay.
But yeah, it's because it's all wood. It's not metal. A metal flute versus a silver flute.
Mm-hmm.
It's still metal, but it sounds different.
Different. Right.
You may take one, an F sharp, and make it out of black walnut, which is a heavy wood.
Mm-hmm.
It'll sound different. This will vibrate more. It has more resonance. Some people have thing about pine. They just love the sound of pine when it's playing.
Now, the denser the wood, would that give you a deeper tone or
It'll give you a duller sound,
a duller sound?
a more precise tone.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas something like this, Spanish red cedar, Spanish cedar it's a fuzzier sound,
Mm-hmm.
as versus very crisp. Like I said, we don't have any flutes right here other than where I have, which is a Spanish cedar. To show you, but yeah, I can show you that later. The difference, I can show you two A's, and they'll sound completely different. I got a pine A, I got a black walnut A that I started out with,
Mm-hmm.
and they sound completely different, but they're the same key, they're the same notes, the same everything. But because of how they've been played and how the wood's treated,
Mm-hmm.
they sound completely different to me, anyways, and
Right.
to a lot of people. Okay, we made the hole a little bigger, routed it out. See where we're at? We are just slightly still above G sharp. Now this is a welding iron. Now what this is going to do is this is going to increase the hole.
Yeah.
You see where it's tapered? But it'll burn it. But that's how you would do it. You would, the heat from the iron would actually increase the hole until it gets to that point where it hits
Mhm.
this note. Then you go on to the next one, and the next hole, and the next hole. You skip one, and then you go to the next hole. Because you're making a pentatonic flute. A pentatonic flute is actually a 5-hole flute.
Okay.
Now to tune this hole that you would normally keep down, you hold these two down, and hold that one down. Then tune that flute, and these two will be over
Okay.
to get the note that you're looking for. And then you have to retune them all over again. Because everything you did above this
Yeah.
changed that note.
Now, is it possible to go through the whole thing and then find out that that's too big? The hole?
No, it won't be too big, it'll be too small.
Oh, okay.
Just that's the way it works, thank God.
Good thing.
That is the way it works. No, it would be horrible to do that. But yeah, all these notes will become low because there's less resonance in front of it.
Okay.
And that's how you tune a flute. And then it's just treating it however you treat it, either tongue oil or a lot of guys swear by tongue oil. I think a friend of mine, he uses shellac. Another guy uses lacquer. It all depends on how they want to treat their flutes. That's how you make a Native American flute.
Now, is there a like a homemade Native American? You know, would they back in the day? Would they have anything natural
They would do the
rub
electronic
on?
tuning. They would
No, but
not
I
do
mean,
it
would
in
they? Was there anything natural that they would rub on?
Oh, bear
If-
oil. I've used bear oil.
Uh,
I use the olive oil, vegetable oil on the drums. A lot of times, like I said, they use bear oil. They'll mix it with other stuff, herbs and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. What they would treat it with. Oh, you got to remember too. A lot of these times, when once the cording was done, that flute wasn't played ever again.
Now,
Unless you were a shaman.
now
Unless you
let's
were a
say,
shaman, you use it for healing.
let's say I carved the flute and I was trying to pick up somebody and she doesn't want it. Do I get to use that same flute again, or I gotta carve another one for the next girl?
Traditionally, depending on your traditions, yeah, you may only get one shot. No, I would say you play the flute with somebody else, I'm sure. Yeah, this is a Lakota style. It's one of my dragon flutes, one of my first ones. What they did was they would be big, huge, ornate, and they would do a bird or something on the end. As far as the flute's concerned, this is the end of the flute. Normally, when I do a dragon flute, the wings come out like this, and they're not usually this big. This is he fell in love with the warbling sound, the Native American flute, so he designed this flute based on that. This is actually not one of my. This is my flute, but it's not one of mine that I made. It's made by a gentleman named Eagle. Which thank you very much. This is the difference. This is black walnut.
That was awesome.
And this was out of place. You see that buzzing that was sounding?
Uh-huh.
Because this wasn't in the right spot. Otherwise it sounds like. See the difference?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now we were talking earlier about the differences in the wood. This is black walnut.
Yeah.
Which is a hardwood. You see how precise that sound is? Now this is the Spanish cedar. Now this is a D sharp, which is a little deeper. See how much fuzzier the sound is?
Yeah.
It's not that it's better, it's just different.
Right.
Everything I just did is all in the pentatonic scale.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you keep this one down. Notes will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you pick up a native flute, it's either set up this way, usually in this area anyways, it's either set up mode 4, which is the 4th roll up, and mode 3, which is the 3rd roll up. Now, what you should hear is a natural progression of notes. Listen. As long as, if you pick this one up, all these have to be open with the exception of that one. You'll stay in the pentatonic scale. Again, making it as easy as possible for that guy to get the girl.
Yeah.
If you go out of it, they call it, one of my teachers calls it playing Arapaho. that bluesy sound.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting sharps, you're getting flats, you're going out of the pentatonic scale.
I just hope the camera mic picks it up like we hear it here.
It might not, but that's that one, that's that one. You have the highs. This will be like a high F. That's a low note. Then it'll go up from there. That's a 1 inch scale. They're cane flutes. You have drone flutes, which is a whole different thing. The fundamental note, which is, in this case, it's a B. It's in the key of B. The low note, which is called the fundamental note.
Yeah.
Plays that while you're playing all the other ones. Now that's shotgun style. This is a A-frame, which is this is a marriage flute. And what this does is, this is probably in the last 20 years they came out with these, maybe, and they sound like this. Because you're a fifth apart, you're always harmonizing, as long as you stay within the pentatonic. But then I thought, how can I play two flutes at the same time? Now, you gotta remember, as long as you stay within the pentatonic scale, you're a fifth apart no matter what you play. So you can play the top two notes here, while you're playing the bottom three here. Or you can strap these off, play these three and these three. Or use it as a drone. You have three different drones on this side. The whole idea was to be able to do this.
Awesome.
And I'm the only one that makes it.
So remember
That's
that.
an idea I made.
You know, I don't even know what else to say to you after listening to that.